Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a fun announcement and update. As you can tell from the title of this video and probably the thumbnail too, my fun little announcement is that I am pregnant and I am very excited about it. So I wanted to make this quick video, well I don't know how quick it's going to be, to kind of give you a little bit of a life update, but then also to kind of recap my first trimester because I am actually currently 15 weeks pregnant, so I've kept this a secret for a little while. Honestly, I planned to post this video a couple weeks ago, but I just have not been in the filming mood. If you couldn't tell, I've been struggling to post videos all of January. I started slowing down a little bit in December and then really slowed down in January. And now at the time of filming this, I haven't filmed in over 2 weeks, so this feels a little weird. And I haven't posted in almost 2 weeks. By the time you see this, it might have been 2 weeks since my last post. It's just that the further I got into my first trimester and starting into my second trimester, the more just like excited about the pregnancy that I got. And so my brain has just been in baby and pregnancy land, and I have not been thinking about booktube and making videos. That's not where my energy has been going, and I definitely have a lot less energy than I usually do, like pre-pregnancy. So my quick version of this is just that I'm pregnant, I'm due in August with a little boy, and I am hoping and planning to get back to my typical videos, but it might be a little bit slower of an upload schedule than my normal. I am starting to get to that point where I miss making videos, which always happens to me when I take a break and is a good sign. I still want to make all of my end of year videos, even though we're like over a week into February at this point, but I want to make at least like 5 of them. Probably not all of the ones that I had originally wanted to make. And pretty soon it's going to be March, which is like the turn of the seasons here on my channel when I do all my seasonal videos. So I have a lot of videos that I want to / should be making, and I'm hoping to get back into a rhythm with that very soon. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to be talking more about the pregnancy. So that little quick update is for those of you who don't care about the pregnancy, which is totally fine. This is a book channel. I don't expect you guys to really care about the rest of it. But for the rest of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got pregnant and finding out that we were pregnant, because if you don't know, this is actually my second pregnancy. I had an ectopic pregnancy last fall, which I have a video about. So getting to this point in a pregnancy has been a bit of a journey. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about some of my appointments that I've had, and then I'll save like talking about symptoms and stuff until the end of the video, because I feel like the least amount of people might be interested in that. Like, there might be people who are interested in some of the middle stuff, but not really in the symptom stuff. So I'll throw that in at the end and probably a quick little bump shot or something.
Hey friends, Editing Jade here to say that this video got really long, like 40 minutes long, even after editing. Apparently I had a lot to say, so I've decided to split this into 2 videos. The first part that is this video that you're going to see today will just be talking about like everything leading up to finding out I was pregnant, and then I'm just going to end it there because that took about 20 minutes, but then the next video will be more of an actual first trimester recap where I talk about the appointments that I've had and some of my first trimester symptoms. The other reason I decided to do this is because I realized I didn't talk about a bunch of symptoms, because by the end of this filming session, I knew it had been going for so long that I kind of talked about my symptoms in a rush and I forgot a bunch of things. So I'm going to elaborate more on my symptoms in like an update clip and include that in the second video that will be out later this week or something. Plus, I think the people who are interested in like my appointments and symptoms are probably different than the people who are interested in just the story of us getting pregnant and everything. So anyways, this video is going to end a little bit abruptly, and that's why, because it's only half the video.
If you're not interested in this pregnancy stuff, definitely don't feel obligated to stick around. All you need to know is that that's what's going on, and that's why I've been a little MIA lately, and I might continue to be a little bit MIA for the next few weeks and stuff, but I really do miss making videos and talking to you guys, so hopefully I'll get back into my normal routine soon. Although by the time August comes, my normal routine will once again go out the window. So in 2021, you guys are just gonna have to be patient with me. Okay, so getting pregnant and finding out that I'm pregnant. Like I mentioned, I had an ectopic pregnancy back in August of last year, which was very emotional for me, but it was kind of the best case scenario of a bad situation. I talk about all of that in this other video. I don't really want to go into that, but I just want to say that even, before that pregnancy, we had been trying to get pregnant. At that point, it was 16 months, and then by the time I got pregnant with this little baby, it was our 18 months of trying. So I was seeing a fertility specialist. I had been doing some fertility meds. It was just ovulation induction medications. So like Clomid and Letrozole, which basically make you ovulate and give you a better chance of getting pregnant. And I had really irregular cycles before that, so that was supposed to be really helpful. But it obviously wasn't working that great because we'd only gotten pregnant once after doing that for months. Anyways, we did one more round of just like ovulation induction drugs after the ectopic pregnancy, and it didn't work. So I was very sad about that, but I knew that it could take a little bit of time. I was kind of on the fence about whether or not to take the next step in the fertility process, just because I knew that we had gotten pregnant with that ectopic using the drugs that I was currently on. It was Letrozole or Femara. So I knew it was possible that it could happen again. And actually, when we got pregnant with the ectopic, was the first time I'd used that specific drug, Letrozole. And then so the second time I used it after the ectopic, it didn't work. But so I'd only tried it twice, and I knew that like we could keep trying that and see if it would work again, because it worked before, so it means it could happen again. But honestly, like I said, it had been about 18 months of us trying to conceive, and I'm not getting any younger. Not that I'm that old, but I am 33, and I just always thought that I would have a baby by now. And so I decided to go ahead and take that next step in the month of November. And honestly, like I kind of talked myself into it as like a little bit of a Christmas present, because I had to pay for it and it's a bit more expensive than just taking some pills. And I figured if it didn't work, we'd go back to just doing the pills for a little while. Like we wouldn't just jump to this next more expensive step and keep doing it over and over, but I just wanted to do it once and, cross our fingers and hope that it works, which it did. So I'm very happy we decided to take that next step. So that next step is called doing an IUI, or an intrauterine insemination. Basically what they do is they take the sperm and they wash and clean it to kind of get it in the best condition possible. And then when I'm ovulating, I go into the office and they stick a little tube right up into the cervix and like kind of put the sperm where it's supposed to go, and it's just supposed to give the sperm a better chance of meeting with the egg, because you're taking out some of the distance that they have to travel. So as far as like what I did ovulation wise was I still took the same drug, Letrozole, but on top of that, I took a trigger shot. This is the first time that I ever had to inject myself with anything. Like I said, I'd just been taking pills before this. And a trigger shot is basically the hormone HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. It helps to like mature your eggs a little bit more, make it a better quality egg, and it helps trigger like the release of the egg. So it triggers ovulation on top of taking the Letrozole. And I really think that the trigger shot might have been like the key. I mean, yeah, we did do the IUI part where they put the sperm up into the cervix, but we don't have any sperm issues that are detectable, at least. And so I don't know, I feel like the trigger shot really did the trick for us, but it could definitely be a combination of, all the things. Anyways, I just remember the night that I had to give myself the trigger shot, I was so nervous. I have a little bit of needle phobia, but I've definitely gotten more used to needles just because you have to get your blood drawn a lot when you're going through fertility treatments and stuff. But I have never ever had to give myself a shot. And so I was really nervous about it. I just put it into my stomach, so in like the fatty part of your stomach. I remember I was like messaging some of my booktube girlfriends, the World Hoppers core members. I was telling them that I was like trying to hype myself up for it, and they're like, you can do it, and like encouraging me. What I did after reading up on it a little bit was I got an ice pack and I iced my stomach so that it was numb, and then I gave myself a shot, and it actually wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't really feel it. Like, it felt weird to feel the needle go like into my skin, but it didn't really hurt that much because the ice had numbed it, and then like I pushed the like liquid in, and like I didn't really feel that. It didn't sting afterwards. And they do say that doing a trigger shot is like one of the easier fertility shots. Like, I know that when you're going through IVF, you do a lot more shots, but a lot of those like burn and like they bruise and hurt more. And the trigger shot is supposed to be easy, but because I'd never done it before and I'd never like given myself a shot at all before, I was very nervous about it. And so I was really proud of myself after I did that. About 2 days, like 36 to 48 hours after doing the trigger shot is when you're supposed to go in to do the IUI. So we did all of that, and then of course comes the dreaded 2-week wait, right? So if you don't know, after you ovulate, you have to wait 2 weeks, because 2 weeks after you ovulate is when you're supposed to get your period, and that's when you know if you're pregnant or not. And if you're like me, you test early, and you can find out, you know, in less than 2 weeks, but it still takes many days, like over a week, before you can find out if you're pregnant. So the waiting started, and because I had taken a trigger shot, I did something called testing out the trigger. So like I said, the trigger shot is just like straight up HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. It's what gives you positive pregnancy tests. So a day or two after I'd given myself the trigger shot, I actually think like the day of or the day after I did the IUI, I started testing out the trigger shot. So basically, you take a pregnancy test every morning. You'll get a positive in the beginning because you injected HCG into you, so it's like a false positive, right? You take the test every day and you watch the line get lighter and lighter and lighter. And if you're pregnant, it should go away and then come back because your body will start producing HCG from the pregnancy. Or at least it'll get lighter and lighter, and then it starts getting darker, and that's how you know you're pregnant. Or it gets lighter and goes away and doesn't come back, and that means, you know, it didn't work and you're not pregnant. So every day, you know, I'm taking a pregnancy test, watching the line get fainter and fainter, and I like, you know, text one of my friends every day giving her the update. And as I get to like day, actually I'm gonna go get my test because I don't remember exactly what day. And I took pictures of these as it was happening, so I'm sure I'll insert some of those pictures here. But basically, as I got to like day 9 after giving myself the trigger shot, I think that's when it got the lightest. And when I got to day 10 after the trigger shot, so 10 days after the trigger, but 8 days after I'd done the IUI, after ovulation, the line kind of like looked the same. And I was like, okay, well that's weird, but you know, it could be just like how diluted my pee is or how not diluted my pee is. Like, it's probably nothing, right? But that was the first day that I was like starting to question, like, wait a minute, something is kind of weird. And then the next day, I took another test in the morning, and again, the line was like the same or possibly a tiny bit darker. And all day the next day, I kept questioning myself and looking at the test over and over, like, is it darker? Is it the same? What is going on? And so that was the first day that I was kind of like, had an inkling, like maybe it worked and maybe I was pregnant, but I was constantly questioning myself. And I even had my husband look at it multiple times too. I was like, what do you think? And we'd like look at it in different lights, like, is it lighter? Is it darker? Is it the same? Am I crazy? Like, it's definitely still there, and I feel like it should be gone by now. Like, all day we were just going back and forth looking at this test. And then that night, I was getting ready to take a shower, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take another test. Let's just see what happens. Thinking that it would be completely negative because it was later in the day and it had already been so light before. I hadn't been drinking a lot of water right before I took this test, and so I had some really concentrated pee, and I took it, and then I got in the shower, I left it outside, and I just like tried not to think about it. And then I got out of the shower and I run over to the test and I look at it, and it was definitely darker, definitely positive, definitely pregnant. And that was the first time that I got really excited. And at this point, you know, I hadn't told my husband anything. Like I said, this was the day that all day I had him look at the paper with me, this paper where I taped all of my pregnancy tests. And we both had been talking about like, oh, today it looks the same or it looks darker, and kind of going back and forth. And so when I had that definitely darker test from the evening, what I did was I came into my office and I added it to the bottom of the sheet and I set it right here on top of this shelf thing. And I walked over to my husband and I was like, hey, I want you to look at this again. I didn't say anything about having taken another test or anything like that because I wanted to surprise him a little bit because we've been seeing the fertility specialists and stuff and, you know, obviously I showed him that I was taking tests every day. It was just like kind of impossible to surprise him. And so I wanted to surprise him. So I put the obviously darker test on the piece of paper. I set it on the shelf and I walked over and I said, hey, I just can't get it out of my mind. Will you look at it again? And at first he was like, Jade, do I really need to look at it again? Like, we've looked at it a million times today. Like, I don't really want to look at it again. And I was like, please, just take one more look. And he walked into my office and he looked at it and he just like stared at the paper and was like, wait, what is this? And I was like, that is a test that I just took like 10 minutes ago. And he was like, but the line is like so dark. And I was like, I know. And then we both got so excited. And it was just a really fun moment. I was really glad that I figured out a way to kind of like surprise him. And obviously it was very, very early, but we were just so excited to have been able to conceive again and like reach that milestone. And I kept taking tests for days after that, and they just kept getting darker, which made me very happy. And then, of course, because I was seeing a fertility specialist, what they usually have you do after you get a positive test is to come in for beta HCG blood draw. So they draw your blood to look at the quantitative level of HCG, and they draw them 2 days apart, 48 hours apart, because they want to make sure that your HCG is rising appropriately. And this is where things were immediately like not going right with the ectopic pregnancy. My levels weren't rising appropriately last time. So I was a little nervous for this, and this was the week of Thanksgiving. So I went in on Monday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I got a call on Wednesday afternoon saying that my levels were looking great. They were actually quite high, I felt like, but it was a really great sign.